The next sutta, number 40, Cula Assapura Sutta, the shorter discourse at Assapura. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living in the Angan country at a town of the Angans named Assapura. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, "Monks, noble sir," they replied. The Blessed One said, Recluses, monks, that is how people perceive you. And when you are asked, what are you? You claim that you are recluses. Since that is what you are designated and what you claim to be, you should train thus. We will practice the way proper to the recluse, so that our designations may be true and our claims genuine, and so that the services of those whose robes, alms, food, resting place, and medicinal requisites we use shall bring them great fruit and benefit, and so that our going forth shall not be in vain, but fruitful and fertile. How, monks, does a monk not practice the way proper to the recluse? For so long as a monk who is covetous has not abandoned covetousness, who has a mind of ill will and has not abandoned ill will, who is angry has not abandoned anger, who is revengeful has not abandoned revenge, who is contemptuous has not abandoned contempt, who is domineering has not abandoned his domineering attitude, who is envious has not abandoned envy, who is avaricious has not abandoned avarice, who is fraudulent has not abandoned fraud, who is deceitful has not abandoned deceit, who has evil wishes has not abandoned evil wishes, who has wrong view has not abandoned wrong view. For so long he does not practice the way proper to the recluse, I say, because of his failure to abandon these stains of the recluse, these faults of the recluse, these drags for the recluse, which are grounds for rebirth in a state of deprivation, and whose results are to be experienced in an unhappy destination. Suppose the weapon called a Mahathera, well whetted on both edges, were enclosed and encased in a patchwork sheath. I say that such a monk's going forth is comparable to that. I stop here for a moment. But here the Buddha is saying, if a monk possesses all these stains, covetous, has ill will, anger, revenge, contempt, domineering attitude, envy, avarice, fraud, deceit, evil wishes and wrong view, then it is like this Mahathera is like our parang, machete. So if this weapon, which is sharp on both edges, is enclosed in a patchwork sheath, I guess is like a piece of cloth. If such a sharp weapon, you enclose it with this like cotton cloth, then you will easily cut that patchwork sheath, that cloth. So the simile means that these unwholesome stains of a monk will just cut away the monkhood of the holy life. So if he cuts away his monkhood, then he is not really a monk, although he wears the robe. I do not say that the recluse's status comes about in a patchwork cloak wearer through the mere wearing of the patchwork cloak, nor in a naked ascetic through mere nakedness, nor in a dweller in dust and dirt through mere dust and dirt, nor in a washer in water through mere washing in water, nor in a tree root dweller through mere dwelling at the root of a tree, nor in an open air dweller through mere dwelling in the open air, nor in a practitioner of continuous standing through mere continuous standing, nor in a taker of food at stated intervals through mere taking of food at stated intervals, nor in a reciter of incantations through mere recitation of incantations, nor do I say that the recluse's status comes about in a matted hair ascetic through mere wearing of the hair matted. Monks, if through the mere wearing of the patchwork cloak, a patchwork cloak wearer who was covetous, abandoned covetousness, who had a mind of ill will, abandoned ill will, who had wrong view, abandoned wrong view, etc., then his friends and companions, his kinsmen and relatives, would make him a patchwork cloak wearer as soon as he was born, and have him undertake the patchwork cloak wearing thus. Come, my dear, be a patchwork cloak wearer, so that as a patchwork cloak wearer, when you are covetous, you will abandon covetousness. When you have a mind of ill will, you will abandon ill will, etc. But I see here a patchwork cloak wearer who is covetous, who has a mind of ill will, who has wrong view, etc. And that is why I do not say that the recluse's status comes about in a patchwork cloak wearer through the mere wearing of the patchwork cloak. If through nakedness, a naked ascetic who was covetous abandoned covetousness, if through mere dust and dirt, to mere washing in water, mere dwelling at the root of a tree, etc., in the same way, if through all these things he abandoned all these unwholesome states, then from young they would have made him do all these things. But Buddha says it is not true this that he abandons all these evil states. How monks, does a monk practice the way proper to the recluse? When any monk who was covetous has abandoned covetousness, who had a mind of ill will, had abandoned ill will, who was angry, had abandoned anger, who was revengeful, had abandoned revenge, who was contemptuous, had abandoned contempt, who was domineering, had abandoned his domineering attitude, who was envious, had abandoned envy, who was avaricious, had abandoned avarice, who was fraudulent, has abandoned fraud, who was deceitful, has abandoned deceit, who has evil wishes, had abandoned evil wishes, who had wrong view, had abandoned wrong view. Then he practices the way proper to the recluse, I say, because of his abandoning these stains for the recluse, these faults for the recluse, these drags for the recluse, which are grounds for rebirth in a state of deprivation, and whose results are to be experienced in an unhappy destination. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says, if a monk abandons these unwholesome states, these stains of the holy life, then he is practicing the proper way of a recluse, just by abandoning these unwholesome states, because these unwholesome states lead to rebirth in a woeful plane of existence. You all have heard me mention before about one of our devotees who had an auntie whose anger was very great, who had a very nasty temper, and his character was very bad, so that he had all these unwholesome states. So 2 days before he died, the two Cula teeth came out, and after he died, then the 2 teeth vanished when she left the body. So it is because of this, because of these unwholesome states, that all these evil conditions appear. He sees himself purified of all these evil unwholesome states. He sees himself liberated from them. When he sees this, gladness is born in him. When he is glad, delight is born in him. In one who is delighted, the body becomes tranquil. One whose body is tranquil feels pleasure. In one who feels pleasure, the mind becomes concentrated. He abides pervading 1/4 with the mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. He abides pervading 1/4 with the mind imbued with compassion. Similarly, abides pervading with the mind imbued with joy, with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. Stop here for a moment. So, this last part, I see that when a monk purifies himself of the unwholesome states, then gladness is born in him. When we progress in the spiritual path, and we get rid of our unwholesome states, and we cultivate wholesome states, then as we progress, we are glad, and from gladness, delight is born. From delight, the body becomes tranquil, and then he feels pleasure or happy, and from there the mind becomes concentrated. The unhappy mind can never become concentrated. So we when we practice the holy path, we have to become happy. You see some people, they meditate, they're supposed to see suffering, and they become, they themselves have a lot of suffering. So they have a lot of suffering, and the mind cannot become concentrated. Whereas in some other sutta, it is mentioned that somebody praised the Buddha and the Buddha's disciples. He said, compared to the external ascetics, the Buddha's disciples always look very happy, very delighted. So that is the condition to attain concentration. We must be happy. Then after the mind becomes concentrated, here the monk practices the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, metta, and then karuna is compassion, and then mudita is joy, and upekkha is equanimity. So after he has attained a strong mind, then only he can radiate these Brahma Viharas, these divine abidings. Suppose there were a pond with clear, agreeable, cool water, transparent, with smooth banks, delightful. If a man, scorched and exhausted by hot weather, weary, parched and thirsty, came from the east, or from the west, or from the north, or from the south, or from where you will, having come upon the pond, he would quench his thirst and his hot weather fever. So too, monks, if anyone from a clan of nobles goes forth from the home life into homelessness, and after encountering the Dhammavuddho, proclaimed by the Tathagata, develops loving kindness, compassion, joy and equanimity, and thereby gains internal peace, then because of that internal peace, he practices the way proper to the recluse, I say. And if anyone from the clan of Brahmins goes forth, from the clan of merchants, from a clan of workers goes forth, and after encountering the Dhammavuddho proclaimed by the Tathagata, develops loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy and equanimity, and thereby gains internal peace, then because of that internal peace, he practices the way proper to the recluse, I say. Monks, if anyone from the clan of nobles goes forth from the home life into homelessness, and by realizing for himself with direct knowledge here and now, enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints, then he is already a recluse because of the destruction of the taints. And if anyone from the clan of Brahmins or merchants or workers goes forth from the home life into homelessness, and by realizing for himself with direct knowledge here and now, enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints, then he is already a recluse because of the destruction of the taints. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says, monk, if he practice properly, he should abandon all these unwholesome states like covetousness, ill will, anger, revenge, contempt, domineering attitude, envy, avarice, fraud, deceit, evil wishes, wrong view, etc. So when he abandons these, then he is truly a recluse. Then after that, after he's abandoned these states, then he is happy. And from happiness, his mind becomes concentrated when he practices meditation, and then he can attain the divine abidings, the 4 divine abidings. And the Buddha says, from there he can also attain liberation and become an arahant. Then he is truly a recluse. I think for tonight that's all we have time for. Anything to discuss?
For Dhammavuddho, some books say that by the 4 Dhammavuddho alone, one cannot attain liberation, if I'm not mistaken. Because some say that the Moksha completely the third jhana.
This statement that the Brahma Viharas can lead you only to the third or fourth jhana, comes from the Visuddhi Marga. In the suttas, these Brahma Viharas can bring you to the Arupas, Arupa jhanas. But by themselves, I don't think you can attain enlightenment. You need the knowledge of the Dhamma. When you contemplate the Dhamma, that is sati. Sati means contemplation of the four objects of sati, body, feelings, mind and Dhamma. And out of these four objects, the most important is Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. Because in one sutta, the Buddha says there are 5 occasions for liberation. Only 5 times a monk becomes liberated, or a monk becomes liberated only in 5 ways. One, when he is listening to the Dhamma. Secondly, when he is teaching the Dhamma. Thirdly, when he is repeating the Dhamma. Fourthly, when he is reflecting on the Dhamma. And only the 5th during meditation. So you see, out of these 5 occasions, 4 of them have to do with the Dhamma. So you don't, generally you don't become enlightened just by contemplating your feelings or your thoughts. But it is actually the Dhamma. Even if you contemplate your feelings and your thoughts, but you see Dhamma there, then only you become enlightened. In other words, your foundation of Dhamma, the foundation of the Buddha's suttas are extremely important. For example, the other day I was telling Majjhima about this Bhattacharya, the lady nun. She became a nun after her 2 children died, her 2 sons died, the husband died. And then when she went home, she found that the brother also died, the parents also died. So, because all this happened in such a short time, she was so grief-stricken, she became mad. And she was walking around, muttering the names of these dead relatives. And because she was not aware of her condition, of herself, of her body, the clothes fell off and she was naked, so she didn't know. So then one day she came to the Buddha, and the Buddha healed her, and then after that she became a nun. And then after she became a nun, she practiced many years, attained the jhanas and all that, and learned the Dhamma. Then one day when she came back from Pindapata, arms round, she washed her feet. When we go on arms round, we come back, our feet are dirty. Before you enter the kuti or the hall or whatever, you have to wash your feet. So she took some water and splashed on her feet. She saw the water running a little distance and sank into the ground. And then something struck her. And then she took some more water and splashed on her feet again, and saw the water go a bit further and go sink into the ground. The third time she did, the water went further and sank into the ground. Then she saw, just like her own relatives, there are some people in life, they come a short distance in life and they die, just like the children. And some people go a little bit longer way and die in the middle age. And some people go a longer distance and die in their old age. And then from this she saw suffering, and because of all the Dhamma she had learned, and because of her mind being so clear, she just reflected on this and became an Arhat. So this liberation, attaining all this, is not. You cannot sit down and think you want to reflect and contemplate on your these 4 objects of sati, contemplate on your body, and contemplate on your feelings and your mind and the Dhamma, and you think you can become Arya or something. It's not like that. When you do all the groundwork, and then a creation arises, just like this, when she didn't expect, then she became enlightened. So the groundwork is very important. Just like in the sutta we heard, the reason why the chicks are not hatched from the eggs is because the mother hen didn't sit long enough. And the mother hen sits long enough, she doesn't have to make a wish, make my chicks hatch from the eggs. She doesn't have to make a wish at all, and the chicks will hatch when she has sat long enough. So in the same way, we have to do the work of cleaning the mind of the 5 hindrances by meditating and attaining the jhanas. And at the same time, we study the suttas to understand the Dhamma better. So when the right occasion arises, sometimes you listen to the Dhamma, it just strikes you. A particular Dhamma you hear is just apt for your situation, like this Patachara, and you become enlightened.
The next question is the training of the senses. So this is training of the senses. We must have very solid Dhamma base in order to really see clearly, because let's say we hear something unpleasant. So the mind door is open and you start, if it is something you don't like, then you start to proliferate, the mind starts to proliferate. If you don't, I mean, if we are not guarding the sense, one of the sense, then it leads to another sense door opening.
Yes, absolutely. Earlier we read the sutta about development of body and development of mind, and the Buddha gave the simile of the piece of wood, which is sappy, wet inside and also wet outside, and then another one which is wet inside but dry outside, and the third one is dry inside and dry outside. Only the third one you can make a fire with. The other two, because they are either wet inside or outside or both, then you cannot make a fire. So in the same way, when a person understands the Dhamma and understands the Dhamma very well, that means you have to study, take a lot of effort to study, then you know the consequences of evil and wholesome states. When you know very well the consequences of evil and wholesome states, then you bodily you refrain from, for example, engaging in sensual pleasures, having sensual desires, bodily and mentally withdrawn also. If any thought of sensual desire arises in the mind, because you understand that it is unwholesome, immediately you stop it, you abandon it. You can even do that even before you attain the jhanas, if you understand the Dhamma properly. But after a person attains the jhanas, especially the 4th jhana, then even the tendency, the insight is rooted out. In that case, he's like the 3rd type of Buddha, outside dry and inside also dry. Whereas a normal person, if he has not attained the 4 jhanas, he may understand the Dhamma well, but because the tendency has not been rooted out from him, he may also, at a moment of weakness, he might also succumb to this sensual desire. That's why there are some monks who practice meditation for many years, especially monks who practice vipassana meditation. They see very clearly, they understand very clearly, but because the mind is not strong enough, many of them disrobe because of this sensual desire. They fall prey to a woman. Many of them are caught by a woman. I know a monk after 40 years in robes also, practicing vipassana and teaching vipassana, also disrobed because of a woman. I know an old monk also, 70 years old, teaching vipassana, also disrobed because of a woman. So, in theory, it's all very good. You see very clearly, you're mindful, you know, you understand. But the tendency inside is not, just like the Buddha says, the piece of wood inside is still wet. Outside it may be dry, but it won't start a fire.
So, Bhante, in this case, whenever, let's say, you have intuition of a sense object or whatever from outside, we have to start concentrating on the Dhamma in order to guard our senses. Because it's not easy to cut away immediately. So, really, I would say think that most of the time we argue with each other, let go. Why should I let go? And then start going back to the Dhamma and teaching or self-mentally.
If the mind is not strong, it's very hard to maintain the mindfulness. In a moment of weakness, the mindfulness is lost. In theory, yes, but in practice. So you need a strong mind, otherwise it's very difficult.
On page 28 here, we find the introduction.
Which page?
Here I don't understand on this paragraph. With the methods of meditation taught by the Buddha in the Pali Canon or in two broad systems.
What page?
One of the development.
What page?
Page 28. Okay.
Yeah.
See, one of the development, serenity, samatha, is aimed at concentration, samadhi. The other is the development of insight, vipassana, which aims at understanding or wisdom. In the Buddha system of mental training, the role of serenity is subordinated to that of insight, because the latter is a crucial instrument needed to uproot the evil at the bottom of the samsaric bondage.
You can see from the suttas, this is definitely wrong. This is the view of Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, who is a monk who believes in the Abhidhamma, who believes in the commentary. But that is not what the Buddha says. No, this is his opinion. Yeah. Remember, I always quote the Digha Nikaya Sutta number 29, Pasadika Sutta, where the Buddha said that if any person thinks that the Buddha's teaching is not complete, that he needs to refer to the Abhidhamma or the commentary, then the Buddha says he does not understand the Dhamma.
I'm just a bit curious about something like that. Probably when you attain enlightenment, probably we don't say out. Just wondering, like the nun who attained the enlightenment by pouring the water, actually what he actually say out to people, like how did he attain that? So this is the meaning of. The meaning is like she shouldn't say she enlightened, right?
No, normally the monks and the nuns during the Buddha's time, when they are enlightened, they will go and tell the Buddha, but they don't say, I have become enlightened. They say generally, say like the Buddha has been venerated. They have paid veneration to the Buddha. So they hint that they have finished their work. That they can do. They cannot directly say that they.
Monk's conduct seems to be quite stringent. Maybe like angelic, the fear of gain and shame and all that for Tapa. They seem to be doing very slight wrong and very crazy and go down to metaphysics. So lay people can do a lot more, but the most they come back as a poor man or a greedy or ugly person. But a monk, if do wrong things, maybe like conduct and behavior is poor, to go to unhappy state, you see that very stringent.
Not actually, because this hiri ottappa, having a sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing, is equally applicable to lay people. The Buddha said, in the suttas that if lay people did not have this hiri ottappa, sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing, then they will be engaging in incest. Mother and son will make love, uncle and nephew will make love and all these things, and they will be behaving like animals. The Buddha said, animals, they don't have these two things, sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing. So the Buddha says, it is these two things that protect the world. If these two things were not around, then people would behave like animals. That was the cause of the downfall of the great Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, they were so strong, so powerful, they were so rich, that they engaged in all this kind of thing, no sense of shame. So that's why the empire collapsed. Not only for monks, equally applicable for lay people. You don't have these two, you will also go to hell. Lay people will also go to hell, to the woeful plains of rebirth, not necessarily monks. But for monks, because monks wear the robe and are supposed to be holy, to behave properly. So if a monk cheats, then the offense is greater. Because the monk is supposed to set the standard. You kind of promise when a monk takes the precepts, when a monk ordains, he promises to uphold these precepts. If he cannot uphold these precepts, or at least a reasonable standard, we don't expect the monk to be like an arahant, but at least a sense of decency must be there. If not, then woeful pains will be waiting for him. Okay, shall we stop here?